Sup shitters, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to the 33rd SP interviews where today I'm going to chat to Jonas Sjöström of GhostRide Media, and if we switch over to here, we have the lovely man on the screen. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Okay, hello, my name is Jonas Sjöström and I'm from Sweden, hence the weird name. I'm the sole person of GhostRide Media. I have featured some other artists and friends of mine that sings and plays other instruments, but I'm the one behind GhostRide Media.
And what kind of music do you make? Because I've read somewhere that one of the genres is like soundtrack.
Right. Well, you heard some of it, and I guess that it's a genre that is kind of difficult to specify, especially when you go on like streaming services like Spotify or Deezer or Apple Music or whatever. But because some call it neoclassical, some call it soundtrack, gaming music is probably what my friends call it. But the problem is that with some of the streaming services, soundtrack needs to be related to a specific movie or film, and I don't have films. I only have the music for it. So yeah, but that's sort of the genre. You probably get the idea what kind of music I make.
Yeah, well, you've certainly made. I've reviewed a bit of it at this point. I've enjoyed my time with it, but where did it all start for you? Like, when did you start getting into music?
Well, I started playing instruments I'm kind of old. So in 1983, when my grandfather on my mother's side, he actually played these like Hammond organs, and he had an old Yamaha organ that he was getting rid of because he was buying a new one himself. So he gave that to us and my family, and I started playing that. So I think it was like 81 or 83 or something like that. So it's kind of early. And from there, I continued to play, and I didn't go to any schools really. I just picked it up on my own pretty much. And from there, in school, I played some drums, and then when I got a bit older, like 15, 16, I started to play the guitar and so on, and it's been going on. Actually, a crucial point for me was actually when I had a sort of a in-between job, helping out at a school, and I was helping out at the music, sort of helping the music teacher with lessons and helping him out with all kinds of stuff around his lessons, and he actually made me learn Cubase. So that was a pretty big thing for me, because that's pretty much what I'm working with still. I think it was like Cubase 2 or 3 or whatever, maybe Cubase 1. I'm not sure, but so I'm up to like Cubase 12 at the moment. So it's been a while. So yeah.
No, that's fantastic, because I can see your lovely studio here. You've got quite a few toys around the place. Do you want to have a talk about a few of those?
Sure. Well, I don't know where to start, but the main thing for me actually is probably the keyboard, right? I used some of the synthesizers as you see here in the back, but eventually, when things evolved with Cubase and everything, I mean, usually you use the sounds from the synthesizer, but nowadays you use VSTs, as they're called, like sampled sounds from any instrument, pretty much. They just need to be a good recording, and you can pretty much put it in your program. But happily for me, there are people who do that for me. So that I buy these VSTs, these instruments, I plug them into my computer, and I can play them here on my keyboard. And what else can we talk about? Well, I got myself a mixer, which is nice. I think this is actually one of the world's biggest sound cards, because this is a sound card I use as well. So because it's a digital X32 mixer, the compact model, so I can drag it along if I want to record something elsewhere, a choir or a friend who's singing or whatever, or something.
No, the X32s are fantastic. They're the ones with the motorized faders, aren't they?
Yeah, the motorized faders, and there's like and there's heaps of all kind of in-depth things to do with it, to the channel settings here and there, and then I have only scratched the surface how to use it. What you can't see here, sort of behind the camera here, is actually my digital drum kit. I have a digital drum kit there as well, and it's a cheap Millennium drum kit, but it looks like a real drum kit, which I think was nice. So, and has mesh heads and rather big toms and stuff. So I like that. So I use all these things together. Sometimes I play the drums on the keyboard. Sometimes I use maybe something like Tune Tracks, Easy Drummer or something like that to get started, and then I can edit it and do my own fills maybe, or if I can't find a groove that I like, I can make my own groove on my drums and stuff like that. So, but I'm not so much of a live performer. I may have been during some time in my life, but usually it's just music in the studio now, which is kind of relaxing. You know, you don't have to perform. You can just goof around and then get the snippets that are the best ones and use those. And it's a lot of experimentation, I think. So I really enjoy it.
That's fantastic. I mean, how do you feel about the quality of the VSTs and the samples that are in the marketplace at the moment?
Oh, they're really good. They're awesome. I mean, I've sent some music to you to review, and some of them you have commented on that they're really good singers. So, and they are, but they are VSTs. Sometimes I have not used VSTs, and well, maybe we can just mention that right away, because you did a review for my upcoming song coming on the 29th this month in July. I'm using a VST through all of that, and to get that to work in this case was kind of a experiment. Actually, that's pretty much how the song, because I wanted to use a VST with pre-recorded phrases and manipulate the phrases to become the music that I wanted. So the actual phrases that I think it's a girl called Celissa Soul Dream from Spain, who is in this VST called Era Vocal Codec or something like that. And they're pre-recorded phrases, but my song, the melody in my song didn't fit the phrases that she sang. So I had to edit it like in Cubase and with all these VSTs and plugins and stuff. So that's pretty much how that started.
Yeah, no, you sound like you got it all sorted. Yeah, you're right. You got me. You got me a few times. I couldn't tell.
Yeah, well, I can't tell myself when I'm done. I'm pretty much, maybe I'm listening to my music in the car. I'm like, I did this. So it's kind of weird.
That said, my understanding though is that you do collaborate with singers. You've collaborated with different singers, including one from New Zealand, if I'm not mistaken, which is where I come from.
Yes, I think I haven't. She wasn't a singer per se. She wrote the lyrics.
Apologies, my bad.
No, because she did sing that song. She sang my song with her lyrics for me to use for my actual singer later. So she, the actual singer that I used had a sort of a demo how the song and the lyric fit together. So she did sing that song, and she actually is a really nice singer. Shirley Sherban in New Zealand. She's a brilliant lyricist, and actually I think she's a principal at a preschool or something like that. So multitasking with photography and lyrics and all kinds of stuff. She's brilliant.
So how do you find these people?
I've used some, found some on Fiverr. I think I have 3 or 4, and you. I found you on Fiverr as well. It's a great place for like freelance people and really talented people. And I mean, I think I think there's like 3 or 4, maybe 5 singers from Fiverr, and the rest is people from my hometown, which is a really quite small town. I live far up in the north of Sweden. It's the actually it's the home of TuneTrack. The TuneTrack company is in my city here. I have a friend of mine working there, not related to my music though, but there are some really good singers here as well. I use anyone that I think is good, has a good voice and timbre and stuff like that I can use, because as we'll probably talk about a bit later, about the singing and how to manipulate that, you can change pretty much anything in the voice. As long as you have the recorded voice, you can do that. So
I mean, that's absolutely right. But how do you decide about what to write about in the first place? How do you find inspiration for what you write?
Sometimes, I mean, oh man, I'm not sure how you relate to that if you write music, but maybe the viewers do. But I sometimes I just end up not when I'm not listening to something. Maybe I'm sitting by myself somewhere, or I'm in the car. I'm turn the music off, and tunes just come to me in my head, sort of like things, thinking about how that would work out, and you're thinking about the music and how the melodies turn out and how the harmonies would work, and at that point, that's when you need to run to the studio and start playing those. So there, I've seen other interviews where the composer said that it's like a gift. It comes from your head and you don't really do much. And that's true to some point, because sometimes the intro or whatever comes to you, and you just it's gifted to you. You can just imagine it, and you just play it, and you just record it, and that's fine. But then that's just the intro of the song. Then you need to work for the rest. So you're gifted the intro or a riff or a hook, something like that, and then the rest you need to work out, and that can sometimes take months to get that finished, but sometimes it just flows, and and it's just it just gifted to you pretty much. Other times it's like, because I work full-time, not with this writing music. I'm working full-time at the ambulance service, so I'm a ambulance driver pretty much. So I see a lot of things. I meet a lot of people, and sometimes you get really affected, and sometimes this is a vent for me, so I can vent my feelings with music, because I can't really talk about these people to and pretty much anyone, because there's like their business, right? So I don't talk about them, but I can express that with different things. Like, for instance, the song Lady Sievert that you reviewed like 6 months or so ago, that was about a girl who's actually had cancer. She was like 22, 23, two small kids, and it's affected me so much. And she said she wanted to fight this, and she did fight the cancer, but in the end she perished to it. So that affected me a lot, and that turned out to be the song Lady Sievert. How that, and you can sort of feel that sort of melancholy and the fight spirit in the song, but at the end it's just mellowed down and just peacefully fades away. So so I use a lot of stuff like that for inspiration, but it's not like I'm using it for inspiration. It's pretty much just me venting it. So it's
First of all, thank you for what you do with the ambulance service. Thank you for doing that. From what little I understand about that line of work, it's incredibly difficult, and it can be really intense. So no wonder you need a break from it from time to time to do something kind of where you can sort of, talk about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's pretty much necessary in some shape or form. For me at least. So it's a good way to vent and to because I mean. To me, when I've listened to other music, it's not like it's a big secret. Pretty much a lot of people know this already, that a lot of the big artists get their greatest songs, or they're really good because they have a lot of feelings. They're maybe sometimes are really troubled people, and they just let the music flow, because they have a lot of feelings and a lot of emotion that they want to vent or to tell people about, when they do that through their music, and that's what makes the music so great. I'm I'm aware of it, and I think it's a good idea, and I think more people should try to do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, when was the last time you heard someone talking about how good their life was for like 5 minutes and didn't lose interest? You know, when someone's life is going well, it's like, cool, I'm happy for you. And then if they keep talking about it, it becomes annoying. But people love drama and they love tension, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And maybe that's why I also like the genre. I'm pretty much composing in pretty much all the time. The fantasy, I mean, pretty much everyone I've been with that have listened to my music thinks that it's some kind of fantasy music kind of thing for a fantasy movie or something like that. I should try to write some science fiction as well, music, but with more blips and blobs and synthesizers. But I get stuck when I try contemporary pop music or rock music. It doesn't come to me naturally. So, and maybe that's because it's easier to vent in a fantasy world for me than with a rock song. Maybe it's easier to. I did write a power ballad with a friend of mine, which is under the name Joanne. On it's called "Runaway Fly Away." So I've tried that, but it doesn't come easily, which is weird because I mean, with these. Music with the symphony orchestra and all these VSTs, like maybe 50 or 100 like instruments, and you're doing all that, and instead of like rock, like a rock guitar, drums, and a bass in a song, and that's more complicated than all this symphony orchestra to me. So it's kind of bizarre.
Sometimes it can be kind of difficult to nail something sort of quote unquote simple because it's almost like you overthink it. I mean, personally, for me, when someone says to keep something simple, it's so easy to go, oh, but can't I just squeeze something else in there? You know, what if the person gets bored, you know, because in this day and age, even if you're trying to write something quote unquote simplistic, you've got to contend with people's attention spans and stuff like that. So for you personally, Jonas, when you write instrumentals, even if you've got those vocal chops and samples in there, right? How do you retain the audience's attention and keep that in mind when you're songwriting?
Well, to me, excuse me. To me, it's I don't know. It's kind of easy because in the genre I'm writing for, is like the soundtrack, gaming music, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really have any rules. I have my own small rules to help me to have some kind of shape and formula for my songs. So I'm pretty much using like an intro, a verse, or a second verse, and then like the chorus, or maybe a pre-chorus before the chorus, and then the verse again, and then like a chorus, and then I have like a bridge, and then the chorus, and then it ends. So I have some kind of structure to the song. But you don't need to do that. You can pretty much, for some of the songs, I have the intro. I have the intro can maybe be a part of the pre-chorus and the chorus, but then it's a verse, and then it's the chorus, and then it turns into something else. It's like you have a bridge that continues through the rest of the song, and that might be as long as the intro, the first part of the song. Yeah, it's I find it really, really, what do you say? Well, it's really gratifying to just use a genre where you could just do whatever you want. And as long as you, as you said, you keep interest, and because sometimes I feel like I'm losing interest in the song because it's getting too like similar all the time. But I'm gonna say like the easiest way to keep an audience or keep the song interesting is to when you're making these epic fantasy music type things, is to start pretty much in the what do you call it, sort of mellow in the beginning, and just let it increase and build up during the song, add more instruments and quantize whatever, and just make it bigger and bigger, and then you have the big crescendo at the end, and then you can next time you can do something different where you just make it go crescendo and bigger and bigger, and then you make it fall down flat, and then you make it bigger again, and all this kind of stuff. So just to make it interesting. And what I've found interesting in songs throughout, pretty much, I was this is a really, really long time ago when I was kind of small, when I started to play, where I noticed that with the bridge, how the bridge can it can be something totally different in the song, and you see that and you don't really notice that when you listen to songs that they have like this part of the song that builds between maybe one of the last choruses and the last chorus. You have this part of the song that's not related to the song. It doesn't sound like anything else in the song, but it's just there. It might be small, something that's sort of mellowed down and just a bit more quiet, but it's not really the same as the verse. It's not the same as the chorus. It's something different. And I found those really interesting. So I tried to use bridges just because I love them, and they make the song more interesting. And usually, to me, a lot of times the bridge is the best part of the song. It's something that breaks the song apart and make it fresh again, so to speak.
Well, yeah, exactly. Often people will play it safe with bridges because they're like, I need the verse to go into the chorus.
Right.
But yeah, I like what you said there. It's something I think needs to be done more, where people they buck the expectations of the listener. Yeah. Like they'll use parallel majors or minors or something like that and kind of twist it. It's fun, isn't it? It's fun songwriting.
Yeah, it's fun songwriting because, and especially like when you have a part, it's difficult to do. But if you have like a song that is maybe in a minor and it's kind of a dark song, and then all of a sudden you have a bridge that is kind of you have a song in a minor key and sounds very dark, and then you have like a bridge that sounds like happy or uplifting all of a sudden. Then you're like, oh, what's going on? You get surprised by it, and that's the thing that sort of, when you think back on a song, that is part of the whole experience. And then you have a different opinion of the whole song just because of this short bridge that sort of was the uplifting part. And you're like, oh, that was an interesting song. You don't say that was an interesting bridge. Well, you might if you focus on that. But if you think about the whole song, then you think, oh, it's kind of interesting song. That part there where you just become happy, that's kind of weird, but that was worked, and it was like make it interesting. So yeah, so that's pretty much why I love this genre, because you have so many possibilities. If you're doing a 4-chord song, then you have like pretty much what you need to do, and you have difficulties maybe doing a bridge of this kind, but with this genre you're pretty much free to do anything. So I like that.
I mean, that's fantastic. Like, I was just thinking this entire time you've been talking about your really fundamental understanding of all these different facets. But when did you start your journey with Cubase and music production and stuff? When did you get started with that specifically?
That must have been in the early 1990s.
1990s,
maybe
okay.
1992, 93 or something like that.
Because, like, I remember reading that your first single, if I'm not mistaken, was released in 2018. Right?
Yes.
That was the first.
Yes.
So how do you feel about that song now, and what lessons have you learned on your journey since releasing that first track?
Oh, man, a lot. Because as I said, I started with Cubase in like the early 90s, but I started my production company and got familiar with it again like in 2017, maybe 16, 17, and I needed something to do when I wasn't working that was venting. So I bought a synthesizer that I have 2 small girls as well, and I thought that would be a good idea for them to start to learn the keyboard and play a bit. So I bought it for them and for me to just play a bit. And accidentally found these like VSTs now, like how much better they sounded like than my synthesizer like that. It was like this Yamaha MOX synthesizer that did play well and everything. But when I found these VSTs, that sort of got me started with all this again. and that just amazed me and made me inspired to get more stuff and to get into Cubase again and use Cubase. And then when I started to get songs together, I thought, well, okay, so this is a pretty decent song, and this is actually a song that's not out there. So I should try to get it out on like Spotify and whatever, just for just for my sake, to sort of have it copyrighted pretty much. So it's like my song, it's like a legacy or whatever. So and also it was a part of where I did a lot of short movies and stuff for my motorcycle club, and I needed music for it, and it was difficult to get music. I didn't want to pay for music, but I couldn't just copy any musician on the internet or on Spotify to just put it there, because that's copyright infringement. So that's a big no-no. Well, at least I think I should have the permission to do that on my videos. But now I understand that you can put your people's songs on YouTube, and the YouTube will sort it out, and they will get their share of the music anyway. But at that point, I didn't know. I had no idea how to do that. So I just thought, well, just write something myself, and that's pretty much how my company GhostRide Media started writing music. But as you say, a lot of things has happened since 2018. I've become more familiar with Cubase, and it's been a few upgrades since then. I learned how to manipulate like voices with Vari Audio, what's called, or Melodyne, as some people know it as, but it's called Vari Audio in Cubase, and all other VSTs. I've been the first bigger song, if it suddenly happens, I actually took to a local mix and master engineer who is also a professor at the university here, and at the music section there, and I sat in while he mixed and mastered my music, and we talked about it. So it pretty much took 3 times as long as it should have done. I learned a lot. And I got the essence and how to mix and master from that. And then I've been playing around with that, and of course it's good to have a good sound engineer to help you with your music. But in the end, it's actually your music, and you decide how it sounds like, if it sounds good or not. So at this point, I actually mix and master everything myself. I've been playing around with this so much, and YouTube is a big help. There's a lot of good, a lot of bad, but a lot of good ideas on YouTube, how to mix and master your songs, and you need to pick what's good for you. And it's difficult in my genre, because there's not a lot of mixing and mastering engineers talking about gaming scores or film scores. It's usually pop songs. They usually have like maybe 10 or 15 instruments at the most, and not the instruments, but channels maybe, but it's like 3 instruments. They have maybe sampled the guitar in 3 or 4 different ways, and they mix between those and stuff like that. But you can't do that when you have like a whole string section and mix and master every single violin. It's impossible. So I'm sorry, just gonna have something to drink.
No, it's okay. No, it's fascinating. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, no, to be honest, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do the interview tonight, because my throat was acting up last night. I suppose it's a benefit that you're maybe not doing as many live shows because of the crazy... Like, what's the music industry been like over where you live because of all the stuff that's happened over the last couple of years?
Well, being a composer, I mean, it's a lonely job. You sit just like in your studio and create music, and then you send it to your distribution company, and they put it on Spotify or whatnot. But I do some voluntary work with a small group here in my home city, and this city is like 150,000 people, so it's not huge globally, but it has a good community. It has a rather big university, And so there are people who playing music, but it's difficult for even for grown-ups like that started getting bands. I mean, even if you're like more than 15 years old and have like your garage band, it's like even if you're like 30, 40, you have people like, oh, okay, so how do we get that out there? How do you get gigs? How do you get into pubs and stuff? So we have this small community where we help new bands to get gigs. So I have found a place where we can have gigs. And we help this band to get promoted by having small rock shows this last Saturday every month. So there are 3 bands every Saturday, and they get be on stage. It's a small stage, probably room for like 50 people in this venue. And this has like blinking lights and like everything. So it's awesome. And after that, they have an idea what to expect when they go out with their music to pubs and stuff. What do they expect at the pub? If they have a venue where they have someone who is at the soundboard and mixing for them, what do the sound engineer at the place want? Because something that I realized that when I started doing this was that bands think, for instance, that they come to the venue and they don't want to do the sound check, and they think that the sound check is for them, but it's not. The sound check is for the sound engineer who's standing there mixing, so he knows what to do and what to expect and what the sound wants, and to get like so the band can hear themselves and the audience can hear them as well, and they have that all that sort. That's what the sound check is for. But the bands haven't thought about that when they're new and they have never been on gigs. So experiences like that is something that we sort of supply for them with these gigs. So that's a lot of fun. And also for me, I mean, I took my knowledge of how to work sound in the studio to the live environment and found out that it's completely different. So I did it kind of backwards because usually you just sound engineer with the band first and then you go into the studio and do that. But I did it the other way around. So I found that a lot of stuff that I take for granted in the studio is not available at a live venue. And it's a bit different. All of a sudden you have a problem, then you need to solve right away, like instantly. Whilst in the studio, I can just let it rest and then think about it and then go back. But you can't do that because the band is playing at the same time at the venue, so you can't do that. So it's a much more hectic. You have to solve problems on the fly, and it's kind of fun. It's really fun, but it's a totally different experience.
Well, thank you for offering that opportunity to the youth in your area. I'm sure they really appreciate it.
Well, I hope so. Yeah, and we have a lot of fun as well. So yeah, it's not a big problem. I enjoy it. Yeah, thanks.
So you've had quite the journey with music, and you're doing lovely stuff in your community. Like, what are you working on at the moment, though, musically, aside from the upcoming release on the 29th?
I had an idea yesterday, or was it the day before that? So I wanted something more adventurous, like a fanfare, pretty much kind of type song fanfare, something like that you would expect something out of maybe Indiana Jones or the old movie Willow, where you have like a journey with stuff happening and stuff like that. So that has been something I wanted to do for a long time, but it's really complicated and it's really I don't really know where to go with it, but that's what I'm working on at the moment. So we'll see how that turns out, if it turns out.
That's okay, because just taking into consideration the fact that you do your own mixing and mastering as well, from what I understand it, you know how there was the loudness wars in the 2000s, right?
Yes. It still is, I think.
No, I completely agree. How do you balance out the needs for like a loud master with maintaining dynamic range in a recording and mix session?
I don't. I don't care about it being loud. I have like not a setting, but I have an idea that I want it to be about minus 13 LUFS or something like that, LUFs, and I use Wavelab does that for me. So I just put in like what I want. Loudness, I click loudness, and then I say like -13, and then it goes through the whole song and turns it into that if it can. Sometimes it says like, okay, I couldn't do that, it was -9 LUFS, so okay, I'm fine with that. But as long as it's above like 6 or 5 or 4, as it is in some radio songs today, I'm happy with it. Because the thing is that I pretty much don't want too much compression on my music anyway. Especially with this genre, it's a different thing. If you're writing a pop song, it's totally fine to have 6 LUFS. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. If that's maybe the genre, maybe it's the genre that sort of states what kind of dynamics you want in the song. Maybe you want it to be like pounding at those peaks, and maybe that's what you want, and that's fine, as long as you know what you want and will know what it means. But my songs, I want them to be real dynamic, so I don't want it to compress too much. So I want it to be as loud as it can, but I don't want it to be compressed, which is what loudness will do. You will compress the peaks, and everything will be at the top pretty much. So you don't get those dips where you can get the mellow parts. So the music I'm writing is probably best uncompressed, but you don't want to burst people's eardrums out with some kind of large part. So you need to have some kind of sort of rule or sort of setting that sort of sets the peaks too much and too low, so they don't turn up the volume, because the mellow part is too low. So that's why I use like something about -13. I think that's good.
Yeah, because it's interesting. We've got this kind of counter loudness thing going on with the digital streaming platforms, like with Spotify, for instance. I think Spotify is just taking anything that's like above 14, and it's like saying no.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it's cutting it down now, from what I understand.
Yeah, but oh man, -14. That I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I'm working pretty much in -13 anyway, so I don't see that as a problem. But even if I would like it to be even more dynamic, I don't see -14 to be a big issue really. But that's just me.
Because I think Tidal, as I understand it, is going for 16. You've got this really interesting movement now where, you know, you compare it to Death Magnetic, which was by Metallica, which was like the focal point of everyone back in the late 2000s, and it was like damn near zero.
Yeah.
And you've now got the situation where these streaming companies are like, no, people want more dynamic range. Do you think that that's going to make people happier?
Well, sometimes, but it's. I'm not sure if you're a parent or not, but it feels like it's a bit of a parenting of the companies doing these settings that you have maximum -16 or maximum -14. But maybe that's because you're having musicians rebel against -6 LUFS, so they want to have more dynamic. But just more LUFS, if you have -20 or no LUFS at all, or like total dynamic, it doesn't mean the music is better, but it just means you have more variety. You have more. You can choose by yourself what you want. But the thing is that, as I said earlier, you need to know what you want and why. Why do you want more than -16? What's the purpose? If you have a song that I don't know about and how that music would work, that you need -20 for some reason, well, that's too bad that you can only have -16 then. But I have difficulty seeing why -20 would be better than -16. But that's just because I can't imagine what kind of music that would be. Maybe that would be an issue. I'm not sure.
Well, no, I agree about the parenting concept, because it insinuates that people can't be trusted to listen to like heavily limited music, as if like, because I've read studies where like if you listen to heavily limited music it, like regularly, especially if it's at a lot of volume, it can give you like headaches and stuff like that, right? What is the most important thing for you when you're mixing and mastering music then? Like, what's the most important thing to keep in mind?
For me, it's pretty much well, I have this ideas how to get what I want, and there are tips and tricks how to get that. But for me, it's to be able to hear every single instrument and every single sort of nuance that I want to show. So, and there are different ways to do that, but EQ is a big thing, to EQ everything right, especially when you have so many instruments as I do. And sometimes, unfortunately, a symphonic orchestra is pretty much EQ'd already, because it has it has all these instruments that are sort of in their segment and they're different hertz, so they're pretty much balanced already. But there's still, to get all the nuances out, you maybe need to cut some instruments at the low end, and sometimes you want to raise the high end just to get it come through. If I have like a string section that I want to have play an arpeggio or whatever, and I want that to show, maybe at the end we have all this crescendo has building up throughout the song, and then it's just disappearing in all this mud. Maybe I use some kind of saturation on them at this point, and I have maybe a different channel with the same instrument but with more saturation, so they're a bit of a distortion, just so you get more transients throughout the whole field, and they lift out and you can hear them more easily, stuff like that. But volume leveling first, then EQing, and then doing all these things with maybe saturation or something like that is probably the main rules or main pillars of EQ or of mixing for me. I think also then when it comes to mastering, it's a pretty much it's about taste. I think what you like, because you can master a song in many ways and get different results, and it will get different things of your music to shine through. So, and that's pretty much about taste, and that's the thing with using a sound engineer. Just because you're using a professional sound engineer, it might not sound the way that you like it to, because they have their idea of what it should sound like. If so, my suggestion is that if you don't mix and master yourself, use a sound engineer and talk to them, because they're pretty much happy to do whatever you want. But if they don't know what you want, they will do what they think that you want or what they think would sound okay. So, and it might turn out really, really well. It might turn out because they're professionals. They probably know their sounds, and they know, but we have no idea. We have no idea. You can get, I mean, if if you and me are mixing the same song, it will probably be a bit different. It won't be the same, probably the same song, but it will sound a bit different. Maybe I will highlight different things than you would. So, and also because I'm a big bass guy. I like a lot of bass in my songs. I like so, and maybe the sound engineer is a purist, and he wanted to sound more like a real orchestra, and then you don't have that really maybe a sub bass as I like in my songs, because I'm writing epic songs and I want it to be epic and I want it to be like a movie. So if I have like if I'm watching a movie, I have the songs with the music, and then will have a thunderous bass, but that's not what it would sound like at the stage, the opera stage or whatever. So then it depends if the mixing engineer is more into wanted to sound natural, or if it wanted to sound like a movie or whatever. So that's the difference I think you will get. And as I said, if you're not mixing and mastering yourself, make sure that you talk about what you want with the sound engineer. And then if you do it yourself, just try things. Just try different things. And what I've noticed that is can be a big issue is in what order you have your plugins. Like if you have like maybe a saturation somewhere, and you have like compression somewhere to glue it all together. Like, in what order do you put those? Just try to switch them around and see what happens. Maybe the rule is that you should have it this way. You should have this 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the way it should be, because the EQ should need to be first, and then you should have this and this. But what happens if you switch it around? It might turn out really bad, and it might be a big no-no. But if you like it, who says that it's wrong?
Yeah, and especially in the mastering chain, if you've done something wrong, you're going to find out pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as you're not putting the limiter at the start, you're probably off to a...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but because you should have some kind of general idea of what the actual plugin does. But apart from that, I mean, when we're talking about things like saturation and stuff, let's flip it around, see what happens if you have it before and afterwards, and see what happens. And sometimes I've done it the way it should be done, and like it still sounds a bit muddy, whatever. And then when I just switch two plugins around and put the one before the other, it solves itself. And the thing is, that doesn't work for every plugin, because every plug is unique. It's written a certain way, the coding and everything, and how the manufacturers of that plugin, how they did it. And a lot of plugins now, they are they do many things at the same time. They're not just an EQ, there's a saturation as well. Or they're like these ideas where you have like a plugin that is, they say that it may be it's easy to use because you just need this plugin and it does everything. So you have like these knobs, and then you twist them and stuff virtually, and it's, your music's supposed to come out perfectly. But the thing is that maybe they do that, but you don't want it to do that. You just want a specific part of what it does. So then when to put it in different places might make a big impact. So it's a jungle, really, to sort things out.
Well, I mean, Jonas, like, it's clear to me that the journey that you've had has benefited you in so many ways, even since your first release in 2018. If you could see yourself in 5 years' time with your music and what you're doing, what would you imagine that to be like? What would you want to achieve by that point?
Well, I'd like to continue, but that's not really a given anyway. So I hope that I'm still doing this. That said, I would like to just continue and improve and get my music out there, and to use this as a vent for me, and to hopefully have people enjoying the music. I'm not having any dreams about becoming a big movie composer or a big star or anything like that. It's just to me, it's important for me to do this. I'm doing this for me pretty much, but I didn't really realize it when I started getting my music out there, how important it is to get people to listen to your stuff as well and enjoying it. That was somewhat of a surprise, really, which it shouldn't probably be, but it was a surprise that I really enjoy people listening to it and getting feedback that they liked it and enjoyed it. And just off my head now, I'm thinking about something else, that it's kind of difficult sometimes to get really good feedback as a composer or writing music, or because when you show it to your friends, they say, "Oh, that's great." That doesn't really give you much. It doesn't really give you much. I mean, it's better to have like a review or something that says, well, this is really good, but I don't understand this. And this, as your last review, where you left a bit, I need to think about this because I don't really know what I think, what I like about it. It tells me more than someone who just likes it and says, "Oh, this is great." So I enjoy that. I actually I'm pretty much, maybe it's a part of who I am as a person. I'm pretty much straightforward. I don't get upset by people saying this is not good or this is bad, or I don't like that you did this. I say, well, okay, I learn. I take that to heart, and I learn to next time. But the thing is that a lot of this stuff, when I'm writing music, is about learning. as I said, as this latest song Azteca was started as an experiment, and I'm doing stuff sometimes to learn, and I don't learn if I don't get criticism or constructive, actually constructive criticism, where I said this was good or this wasn't good. I can't really hear this, and that was something that I think was lacking. That would be more important to me than just saying, "Oh, this is great." So.
Well, I mean, just in respect to that, thank you for being so good about the feedback that I provide. I've had people literally threaten me with lawsuits through Fiverr because of some of the comments that I've made. One in particular was this young lady that was coming up in New York, and her parents, I think, were paying her quite a bit of money to get her exposure. And there was a lot of vocal ornamentation there. And whichever company she was getting to promote her music was very unhappy with the fact that I pointed this out. And they were patently abusive about it. Yeah. I just want to say, I appreciate you being so good about that. I don't think there's been a single track of yours where I've been like, I dislike this. Just with Azteca, I was just trying to make my mind up about it. I wasn't necessarily ambivalent, but I could, as I remember saying, I can appreciate the expertise and the passion and the work you put into it. Right, that there. But I figure lying to you and pretending that I'm totally 100% into something, it just defeats the purpose. It's not helpful to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's not. And I'm sorry to hear that you get these kind of people who don't really understand, because of course, I mean, it is I'm paying for your time to do this. That's how I see it. I mean, you're not reviewing all our music for free because it takes up your time. Otherwise, you won't be doing anything, and you probably be hungry. So of course, you need some payment for it. But I'm not buying a promotion. I'm buying a good review. That's not how I see it. If you would write or make a review on my song, and you would say, well, this is so like GhostRide Media, this is really not good. I must say this is not good. I would take that. I would pay the amount we agreed on. Maybe I wouldn't show that video. That would be the promotion. I wouldn't show it because that's how it works. But I would still listen to what you had to say, and then I would try to figure out how to fix it. Maybe I could fix it on that song, or maybe I could fix it for the next song.
Yeah, well, I mean, just on that topic, I've got to go soon, so I'll keep this part about me very, very short. But one of the earliest reviews I did was for a band named Vices Inc., and they put out a track which was good, but the mixing wasn't totally fantastic, and they re-released it. They took the feedback I gave to them, and now they've got like 50 to 60,000 monthly listeners because they took advice from people like me, just like you're taking advice from people like me who are offer, and they actually are doing something. And those people that send me the lawsuit, for example, well, they're not doing so well because they haven't changed, or whatever. But look, just thank you. I appreciate your candor and your really professional attitude towards it.
If you are gonna leave soon, I'm sure you have some questions too, but I just wanted to show something about what I've been talking about. We've been touching the subject for a bit, experimenting, and also the new song, which I'm happy to talk about just because it's releasing soon. But I'm going to switch over to my Cubase here just for a second, and I'm just going to show you what actually I'm doing, what I'm talking about when I'm talking about experimenting and stuff. So I'm gonna see if I can switch over here too. So I'm just gonna play a bit of this song, and you will probably recognize that, and the people listening to this video will listen, hear what I'm talking about. So I'm just gonna play it and see if it's loud enough so you can hear it.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's how you're doing it.
You see it now, all right? So this is the this small box here is actually the VST. It's called Era 2 Vocal Codecs, delivered by Best Service and created by Eduardo Tarilonte. I think he's Spanish or whatever. But anyway, and this this VST has different types of vocal, but it's with the same singer. She's really talented, and so I'm using here the Heroica, and I'm using phrases. So these phrases are in like 80 beats per minute, which made me realize that, well, that's too slow. 20 beats per minute, that was also too slow. So I did the 80 beats per minute and I doubled it. So this song goes in like 160 beats per minute. So just to so you have a lot of math to do. You have to figure out how to make it work. But so if we have a listen to here to the chorus again, or the pre-chorus, you can see what I had to work with. So the song turned out like this. But the phrase that I used for this sounded like this. Oh, maybe not. Maybe let's see. Let's see if I find the right one.
Wow. So that's what happened.
So that's actually the same song phrase. So what I had to do was, as you see here in for those of you who knows Cubase. Oh, sorry, now I'm on the wrong. Here we go. There you go. Pretty like, okay, so first what I did was to render this in place, so I got it to be a WAV file like this. And okay, here we go. Anyway, so right, so here we go. I need to play it with Barry Audio. So then Cubase will show me all these blocks here that represents the tone, and I can pretty much just drag these.
Oh, I get it. So you've converted the waveform the waveform into MIDI, kind of.
Yeah, it does, and so that's the first part. So I get the phrase that I want to work with the melody that I want, so to be in harmony with it. So I did that first. Then I also needed to, I wanted to add some vibrato, and this was actually the experimental part for me, because I used this new plugin that I got. That, let's see here, get the plugins up. It's not there. For some reason, and that is bizarre. Anyway, so this I can just put it in there anyway. So it's called Crispy Tune, and this it looks pretty much like it's another Melodyne or another Barry Audio plugin. So I just did that so we can see it. So what I did with this then was just to create the vibrato there. So they have this waveform here where I could just create vibrato on there, but this would sound really bad. So I did a lot of experimentation with this and trying to make it work properly. And it has like all these things where you can make it fade in for a bit, maybe something like that, or you could cut it and make some part of it not with vibrato like that, and make the vibrato come further apart in the tone here, something like that. So that was actually the experiment that I made, and what turned out to be the song. So See how I can get back to you here. Change the camera again.
There we are.
I'm back. Yeah, so that was the kind of experiment that ended up in the Stacka song, and it's all about the vocals for me in this song. It was it turned out only to be the first bit that is kind of very soundtracky gaming music ish, and then it turns like into this salsa mambo Latin music at the end. So it was an experiment with the song recordings in the phrases and stuff like that. So now you understand a bit about the work behind that song.
I had no idea. Thank you for showing me how that works, because I genuinely thought that you'd hired someone on to help with that.
Well, I wish I could do that, because that would have been a lot more fun, but that would cost a lot of money. I tell you, these singers that are doing these VSTs that are really awesome. They're really good. And on top of this, I mean, I credit also to the people who make these plugins and stuff, because you can make this does not really exactly. You can have a nuance of Celicia Soul Dream, but it's a new voice. Celicia doesn't have this vibrato. So this is a fake person. This is a person that doesn't exist who sings this at this point. And this, to me, the inside of this have made me realize that the music we listen to on the radio, it sounds great. It's great music. That's great talent behind it. But is it real or is it not? That's a philosophical question. We know how it's done nowadays. When we're doing all this stuff, when we're composing and we're using all this, we know how you can make it sound like that. But would it sound like that live? Maybe not. We don't know. So it's a difficult world we live in. But for me, I don't really mind that it's what we call fake, because there's a lot of energy and talent goes behind that music anyway, and the music sounds good, and that's what the end result should be anyway, that the music sounds good. Be careful not to overdo it though, because you still want it to sound realistic. You don't want to vary audio melodyne it or crispy tune it too much so it sounds too good, because then it doesn't sound like a real person anymore.
No, you're absolutely right. It's just about finding that equilibrium.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's pretty much the essence of music anyway, isn't it? I should write that on my tombstone.
Well,
it's all about the equilibrium. Yeah,
exactly. On that philosophical note, before we head off to today, or for today, yes, should I say, Jonas Sjöström, where can we find your music?
The easiest place is probably on any of the streaming platforms like Tidal or Deezer or Apple Music or Spotify. Just search for GhostRide space media, and that's the only one out there that you should find it. Otherwise, I have the website if you have difficulty, ghostride.se. SE is the Swedish short sort of phrase there. Ghostride.se. But GhostRide Media, just search for it on Google or on your streaming service, and it should pop up.
Well, Jonas Sjöström of GhostRide Media, thank you so much for your time today. It has been an absolute pleasure to chat to you. I wish you the best of luck in future with your musical endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you, Logan. And I appreciate your time to do this for me as well. Thank you.
Cheers. Best of luck with music, and I'll see you later. And that was my interview with Jonas Sjöström of GhostRide Media. I had a great time chatting to Jonas. I've been reviewing his stuff for a little while. I've been keeping track of his various artistic efforts. It's crazy to think that he's been doing these releases since 2018. He's accomplished so much. I would thoroughly recommend that you go check out his website and his various social medias, and his YouTube page if you want to check out more of his music. And stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time. It's need to help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on. And just before I go, remember what Jonas was talking about. Is the music that you listen to truly real? Is it put into, I think it was crispy tune or something like that? These are all important questions to ask. But in the meantime, Spiderhands out.